Welcome to the Higher Self Podcast. My name is Pete Gilfillan, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat Truitt. We're all about helping people become business owners or just become better business people. Good morning, Nat.
Good morning, Pete. What we got going today?
Oh, man. You know, I got a little bit of a rant, right? So I'm usually super pumped up about something. I got to tell you, I'm worked up today.
I couldn't even venture a guess.
All right. So we're now into 2022, and I got a couple kids in college.
Yes.
So my daughter goes to college, and they go back, but because of this the latest variant of this COVID-19 stuff, they locked the school down, right? So what does that mean for a college student? So she has to go back, and she has to basically do online classes. So she has to stay in her dorm room with her roommate, okay? And meals, she can't go eat in the cafeteria, right? Or anything else like that. They have to go get a box and bring it back to their room, right? So you have to eat in your room. You have to do your classes in your room. And like you have the study lounges at the end of your hall where you can study. They have those locked. They have all the furniture out of them. The engineering building, she's in engineering, they've turned off the Wi-Fi, so they can't even go into the engineering building, right? They have this thing locked down, so you can't do anything, right? So my daughter calls me crying the other day. I go, what's going on? She's going nuts, right? She's locked down. She can't do anything. They're not allowed to do anything, except she sends me a picture. They have basketball games, right? At the university. The university, this one that's locked down, she can't leave her room. At the basketball game, they're playing the game. All the people are sitting right next to each other, no masks, and they basically don't. They're eating concessions. So I'm paying now $40,000 a year, and my daughter calls me and says, "Hey, listen, this isn't fair. What do you do in that situation?"
I don't know. I guess you could ask her if she wanted to come home and be imprisoned in her bedroom at your house.
Well, that would probably be an easy no. But I think that's not fair. Why would you lock down everything? Where you can't be in a study room, you can't go to the workout facility. They've limited the number of people in the workout facility, but you can go sit next to somebody in a basketball game that has no mask that's eating a hot dog.
I guess you could have basketball 24/7 and take your homework over there.
I guess, right? But sometimes money has something to play. I'm sure they've got TV rights or something, or the tickets to get in. But it's very interesting to see how things happen here, and so we might have to write a little letter on that one. So I'm worked up today. So
I don't blame you.
Yeah. So today, what I'd like to do is we oftentimes get questions from our listeners. And so I'm going to have Sean grab out of the mailbag or the question bag and give us a question that listeners want to know. And we'll see if we can't address that question. Sound like a plan?
All right. Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Let's do it. Sean, what's our question?
The question came up is, what are some of the top reasons that franchisees end up failing in their business?
Great question. When you think about this question, it's very interesting because you can have two executives invest in the same franchise, and they can have dramatic differences in terms of performance, right? Like they could run and build a $3 million business, or they could do it so they're terrible and they end up having to sell, right? So what are some of the reasons, Nat, as we think about this, in terms of how two people, same corporate executives, run big businesses, all that kind of stuff, they can invest in the same franchise and they can have dramatically different performance results? Give me one example of something that separates somebody from a top performance and somebody struggling.
Yeah, well, I can kind of just share with you my own personal experience in senior care. I bought a senior care franchise in 2001 in Chicago. And we had senior care was new, so it was up and coming back then. So we had about 18 owners all started at the same time. And it was kind of interesting because your exact pointer to the question, some people just kind of really took off and did well, and some really did not do well. And so I think a lot of it kind of goes back to the fit. And so whether or not the owner is willing to do the activity it takes to be successful. So for example, with senior care, I always call that kind of that run for mayor type of business. So you're like kissing babies and shaking hands 30, 40 hours a week as you're kind of building your personal network to get referrals. So some guys, are just kind of more like the run for mayor type of guys, and other guys are kind of the more, I want to stay in the basement and be on my computer behind the scenes. And so in that case, the guys that were out building the relationships were growing, and the guys that were sitting in the basement were really struggling.
Yeah.
So I think
is that really about picking the right? It's almost like marriage, right? It's picking the right partner that kind of aligns with what you're comfortable with, right?
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah, the fit.
And I take it a little bit further than that, right? So one of the things that I think about is this working hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many people, they start a franchise and they think because there's systems, process, and procedures and support that they don't have to work very hard. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I mean, you got to get in there. And to your point, if you got an in-home care business, you got to run for mayor, you got to be out shaking hands. You got to be working hard to get it going. And if you're not willing to put that time in, then, or that hard work, and certainly we deal with a lot of executives semi-absentee, but you still have to work hard to get it off the ground.
Yeah. And that kind of like ties into following the system, right? So bottom line is, the benefit of a franchise is there should be, whether it's 10 other successful, if it's a newer system, there might be 10 owners or locations up and running, or there might be 100, or more established, there might be 400. But in order to be successful, you have to go figure out what other people before you have done to be successful, follow that system. And I can pretty much tell you it's all working hard is always going to be, a big, huge part of that. In the, my example of the senior care, for myself, I'm not naturally really wanting to go out and run for mayor, but then I figured out like, oh man, I'm going to have to do this to be successful. So that was kind of my, I had to work hard to do that. And sometimes you have to go outside your comfort zone to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell people when we launch a business, it's like when you fly in a plane, right? They have all the cargo and the bags, luggage in the bottom, and they have all the people. It takes a lot of power for that plane to get off the tarmac, right? And
yes.
I'm told once you get to a certain altitude, they actually can pull back the power. It's not any different with the business. From somebody, I placed somebody in a franchise one time. They got going, and they decided that they'd rather spend the afternoons in the park playing with their kids, right? Like, well, you got to put the work in. But I think you had an interesting point. I think a second one is following the system, right? You can have the greatest system in the world, but if you don't follow it, then you're not taking advantage of what you paid for. But more importantly, you're reducing your chances of success.
Yeah, you're making it. It's going to take a lot longer. I know you're a competitive kind of guy, so I'm sure the first thing you do is you get in, you find out what the top, 1, 2, 3 guys are doing. How'd you do this? I'm going to beat you. Make a little race. Hey, you want to put, a little friendly wager on this? I'm going to be number one in the shortest amount of time ever. So yeah, figure out what the top 10% are doing and go do that. That's my advice.
Follow the system. Absolutely. I put an executive in a window washing franchise. Mm-hmm. And this guy had run a division of a company. So he starts out this window washing franchise, and he's not very good. The business is doing terrible, right? So the franchisor calls him and said, what are you doing? He goes, hey, listen, I know business. Man, I've run a division of the company. And they say, hey, we know you know business. Just follow the system. All you have to do is follow the system, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. We know you're really smart. You got all this business. Just follow the system. Guy starts following the system, and now he's in the top percentage of the network, right? I mean, he's a top performer. All you have to do is follow the system. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make the system better. I mean, I know when you were in Comfort Keepers, you probably took the system, followed it, but you also did your things that made it better.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'd like to think that, but I don't know. I think the other thing too is just being accountable. Like, kind of like what I was saying before, you could have like an accountability group or mentor group. A lot of times, you're graduating training class, so you have a little accountability group, and you guys kind of can work together. And hey, are you doing the KPIs? Or, are you having this many meetings, or tracking all your conversions and everything like that?
Well, and I think that's right. I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, by the nature of this accountability, right? You have to take ownership, because there are going to be problems, and we can't, in today's world where it's always somebody else's fault, we have problems. Bottom line is you're going to have speed bumps. You're going to have things, and you got to be accountable. Hey, I've got to figure it out. It's 100% on me. No excuses. I've just got to solve that problem.
Well, I was just telling you the other day about one of my problems, which was a good problem to have, was I had been using an ACH, which is the automatic check draft provider for the last 7 years. And the business has been growing. And so they just, all of a sudden I got some errors, and I look in there, and it was like I had reached my daily max. So I'm like, oh crap, this is a really big problem, because I need to be able to invoice and collect payments, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I had to go solve that problem. And you can imagine that was my my number one priority till I got that ironed out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to, you're going to have those things. You got to stay on top of everything, and the buck stops here literally when you own your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to just, I like the story of Anthony Robbins, right? And I think I told you this. I'm Anthony Robbins. I've been to a bunch of his events live, and his business model is taking 4,000, 8,000, 10,000 people, putting them into a large convention center and changing their lives, right? I mean, that's what he transforms lives. And when this pandemic started, what happened? Basically, the whole country, the whole world shut down. So he could not take 8,000 people and put them into a stadium unless he's at the university where my daughter's going. And anyways, so his business is shut down. And instead of saying, hey, listen, I'm going to wait for this COVID-19 stuff to end, he goes out and figures out, okay, how do I do this? So he goes and creates this huge production studio. It's got 1,500 monitors in the back, 1,500 monitors in the back, just all these monitors. And he basically sets it up with Zoom so he can take 50,000 people and he can put them on a Zoom session, right?
That's crazy.
And I'm sitting on this virtual Unleash Your Power Within event. And I've been to personal ones, but this was an online one. And I think I'm sitting there going, holy cow, he's taken a problem. His business is shut down. All of a sudden now, instead of having 8,000 people, he's got 50,000 people. Mm-hmm. And so he's 4X'd his business, taking a problem, and he 4X'd his business. It's absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, when life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade out of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we see, the difference between being successful and not successful, is your ability to lead. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about, I was just watching some football games, right? And it's crazy, right? How you can have two teams that are very talented. One team, the leadership steps up during the game, and and the other team, by the numbers, should win. I'm not saying the Dallas Cowboys or anything should have won that game based on talent, but you look at their top three players, they did not step up and lead during that game. They all had very mediocre performance, and I think that's why they lost. So
are the Cowboys your team?
Growing up, they were from a standpoint.
How about now?
The last 26 years, they've run a little on a dry streak. So from that standpoint, but that's a difference, right? Is you as the business owner have to step up and lead, and if you don't, your odds of success, I think, are diminished.
Totally. Yeah, the building a team and being a leader is really important. I think, fortunately, most of the guys that I've worked with over the years, that is kind of one of their strengths. They're good team builders and leaders, and I think that really helps you grow a bigger business. You have to kind of see the bigger picture. You can't, you have to have people helping you do things. You have to be able to delegate. If you try to do it all yourself, it just ends up being a glorified job. So, I mean, it really is important to be able to kind of build a team and let people focus where their strengths are. And that way you can focus where your strength is. Yeah.
You're a big fan of the book Traction, right?
Yeah. I've got it right here, actually.
Yeah.
I'll hold it up for everybody listening to the podcast.
Traction. Yeah, absolutely. Right. But, that's a book about getting the right person in the right position with the right responsibilities. And that's what leadership is all about.
It is interesting that, when I think about the franchise supporting their franchisees or the parent company, actually, a lot of them really have been talking a lot more about Traction over the last few years. I know when we talk to some of the franchise developers or the development team or support team at some of these franchise corporate locations, they're saying, they'll say we implement Traction, which I think is so smart because, it really does help you, get your arms around what everybody needs to be doing every day.
Yeah, no, I know one franchisor, they actually give the book and they use that EOS system to do that. So absolutely. One of the things, the reason why we invest in a franchise is because you've got a business partner, right?
Yes.
And that business partner helps you through. And we think about the last 24 months of this COVID-19, right? It's been a crazy time for business owners, and having a franchise partner to kind of help you with the support to navigate through this, how to switch your technology so you can do a virtual estimate versus a in-person one. That's the stuff. In what I find is that sometimes people are too proud to leverage the support from a franchise system.
Yeah, when you talk about, like, back to the original question of like what makes some people, fail, or what makes some people more successful, I do really think following the system. And then also like kind of that mind share, or working together with the other franchise owners. If you just isolate and kind of go do your own thing, I think there's a pretty good chance they're not going to be as successful. I've seen that firsthand with a lot of owners over the years.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, like, if you're struggling, pick up the phone, call the franchisor. That's why you become a franchisee, right? So if for example, you're out there giving estimates and your closing rate estimate to job or deal is lower than what the industry or the franchise average is, then the system average, then go ask for help to figure it out, dial it in.
That's really one of the best things about franchising that I love. It's just math. At
Yeah.
some point, it's just math where, like this many phone calls turns into this many like in-home visits, and this many in-home visits should turn into this many jobs, and average jobs should be this amount. Whatever your business is, obviously it depends. Whether if it's a gym, like this many phone inquiries turns into this many tours, turns into this many memberships. It's just math.
Yeah.
And like I said a little earlier, being the competitive guy that you are, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like always be fighting to be, have the best closing ratio, or have the most people coming through for tours, or whatever, right? So
I'm going to figure out the math for sure, right?
figure out the math. Yeah.
And you are a franchisee, I've been a franchisee. And one of the key things is not only do you get the support from the franchisor, but you get the support from the other franchisees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're
Totally.
struggling with something, you can call your buddy that owns the same franchise and say, hey, have you seen this, right? And were you part of any kind of accountability groups?
Yeah, we actually, in Chicago, like I said, we had the 18 owners all started kind of at the same time. So we actually would get together monthly and kind of, help each other out. And then we also came up with like a regional marketing co-op. So we co-op all of our money together and buy like regional radio ads and things like that.
Right.
So there's tons of opportunity. The nice thing with senior care, like I actually really like that in franchising, you have a territory, because then I always think of franchising as being somewhat hyper local.
Yeah.
So I had my territory with my zip codes and everything else. And if I got somebody for, 10 miles away, I would refer them to the closest franchise owner over there.
Yeah.
So we were able to refer back and forth, and we were like hyper local. So our employees, were able to be close to our clients or our customers. And then we co-opt our money, with the 800 number to do some radio advertising. It's just, I liked it a lot.
Right. But there's some franchisees that they don't really kind of participate in those groups or leverage that whole network. And I think it's crazy.
I think they're
not
missing
to.
out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it reduces their chances
free.
of success, right? It's very interesting. You can take some very smart people, you can put them into business, and you've already kind of alluded to it earlier, is that you have to know your numbers, right?
Yes.
And most franchise systems have dashboards where you can look at all your KPIs, but I mean, you could talk to some people and you can ask them a simple, what's your closing rate on estimates? And they go, they don't know that. And that's crazy.
Yeah, that's the hobby.
Right. I mean, it's just, if you don't know your numbers from a standpoint. So
the thing is, when you have your own business, what you're saying is, I'm a responsible human. I'm good. The buck stops here. I'm going to, manage all the details. If you can't do that, then you should just go get a job. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So bottom line is, you can take two people, both senior level executives, same kind of background. You can put them in the same franchise system and you can have wildly different performance, right? But we know for sure hard work, you got to follow the system, you got to essentially solve problems, be accountable, you got to lead your teams, you got to leverage all that great support from the franchisor, other franchisees, and you got to know your numbers, right? And then you got a really good chance of being successful. But those are the core things that separate success from failure, in my opinion. Yeah,
I agree. Excellent. That was a really good question.
Yeah, excellent. All right. So I'm going to go write a letter to my daughter's university right now. So we'll call it a day. But thanks for your input today.
All right. Talk to you later. Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.